You're tuned into the Zealous Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder, and this week I've got two individuals, actually husband and wife, Adam and Mary Kate Feit. Now, I gotta tell you, last week we had ourselves a great conversation. It lasted for close to an hour, and at the very end, I realized I didn't hit record. And so they were kind enough to come on back this week and to try it again. So I made a point of hitting the record button this time. And although you missed out on a great conversation, you're not about to miss out on round two. These two have been at Springfield College, which seems to be like Rome, where all roads lead to Springfield College when it comes to strength conditioning. As you have listened to previous episodes, a lot of my guests in the professional realm of sports, behind the scenes, many have gone through Springfield College. So we're going to find out why is that, plus a whole bunch more. So make sure you follow us on Instagram, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and here we go.
There's something going on in the Northeast, and it seems that it's all centered around Springfield College. And I don't know what it is, so I've brought on a couple of friends here, Mary Kate and Adam Feit, to talk about what it is. Because I got to tell you, I've got so many guests that have come on through the professional sports realm, and all roads lead back to Springfield College, whether they got their master's or their undergrad or whatever it was. There's something going on there. So what is going on with Springfield College? Why are you guys first? Hey, thanks for coming back on, I'll say. For those not aware, we had this awesome conversation last week. It was fantastic. And 52 minutes into the conversation, I don't see the recording icon up in the left corner. That's because I didn't press the record button. So these two are generous enough to offer me 2 times the time normal guests do. So thank you for that. Thank you for coming back on. And let's just get right into Springfield College. What is so good about that little town in Western Mass?
Well, I do want to clarify, Rocky, real quick, because this is our second time you're charging the viewers twice the amount, right?
Yes.
To make up for any losses.
This is true. Subscribe again. Double down.
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to be back on. And if we didn't enjoy our conversation so much, I think we both would have said, no, we're all set. But obviously, it's been great to meet you and work with you over the last year or so, and being part of the Perform Better crew. This is awesome. I'll give my take, because like you said, Rocky, I think, whether that road was through undergraduate years or the graduate years, I think Mary Kate can speak to that. But what has been really great about our time at Springfield College, I was an undergraduate there through their exercise science program. And then I came back for my PhD, was that this focus on learning by doing. And I think, we say that all the time, we live it, it's part of our curriculum, but you can go to a lot of programs in the world and they're going to teach you what you need to know to pass a certain test. They're going to help you get a certification. They're going to, look at all the latest and greatest white paper research and saying, here's everything that's happening. But who's going to hold you to the standard of, can you coach it? Who's going to hold you to the standard of, can you actually write a program? And who's going to hold you to the standard of, this is how it is in the real world? And so I'm very grateful for my time at Springfield College as a student with our internship program. And then now I'm actually to be able to come back full circle and serve in the role that so many of my great teachers and professors and mentors have done for me. So I'm going to go with, we don't just teach it to you, we actually have you go through the actual process of coaching and being instructed and whatnot. So 1 point for Springfield College for the amount of practical value that we can offer you.
Right on. All right, Mary Kate, what's your idea? What's your version?
Yeah, I totally agree with Adam. So Adam went through the program as an undergraduate. I went through the program as a graduate student. He teaches more undergraduate students, where I teach more graduate students. And it's kind of the same with our graduate students. It's that hands-on experience. They do 3 internships, one of which is on campus working with our student athletes. Another piece is the GA positions on campus, where I oversee the GAs, but I actually don't coach any teams as the Associate Director of Strength and Conditioning. I'm just there as a supervisor and mentor, which means I have 6 GAs working under me who are the head strength and conditioning coaches for 2 to 4 sports. So at big schools, you get to be a GA and maybe you have one team or you help with some teams. Here, when I was a GA, I was the head strength coach for the football team. I was the head strength coach for the women's basketball team. I was the head strength coach for softball and the head strength coach for men's soccer. So when I left Springfield College to go take teams at University of Iowa, University of Louisville, I had already been there and done that. So that's a big piece for us, especially with our graduate students, is when you hire one of our students, it's not their first time doing it. They've been doing it and they're prepared for it. They've already made their mistakes. They made their mistakes under me, right? So I get to watch them make the mistakes year after year after year with new GAs. But we kind of go through that growing pains with us before they go elsewhere. Same thing for internships. They intern with us first before they go off campus somewhere. So we get to see how they work as a coach and provide them feedback and assess them and evaluate them and help them grow. And then we send them elsewhere. So we kind of try to get rid of all the bad habits before they go out into the field.
That's huge. I was not aware of that. So that makes complete sense that they would find an internship with some, in the case of a lot of my guests, they would find it with some professional sports team. And then after their internship, they would just keep on that path and make their way up to performance director or a head strength coach or whatever the title is for that particular team. But to your knowledge, how many other schools have that kind of ladder or format for their GAs? Are there any?
There's a couple where we have alums who've created a similar format. I know Merrimack College has a handful of GAs, Sacred Heart has a handful of GAs, and both their head strength and conditioning coaches came through our program. So it kind of exists out there, but they still have full-time staff members working with teams as well. Where here, we're completely molded academic and athletic. So we consider our weight room a laboratory for our classes. So even though those places, they might have GAs working in there, and of course they're educating them, but it's not part of their education. Where for us, interning in the weight room is part of our education. They take a course in which they're interning in the weight room and then meeting with me once a week. I'm observing them, Adam's observing them, we're providing them feedback. So it's kind of out there where there's places using a lot of GAs, but again, it's not pulled into their master's program the way that it is with us.
And then what about working with the athletic trainers, or if you've got physical therapists that are on staff or that they come in from the private sector? How does that work? You must coordinate that as well to make it a fully comprehensive program, right?
Yeah, if I could speak to that, that's actually one of my biggest passions is how do we create this high performance model at the Division III setting? So, Mary Kate and I have been very fortunate to work with Dr. Brian Thompson, who is our director of strength conditioning, and previous to him, Dr. Margaret Jones, of how do we get all the relevant stakeholders in these meetings? And that's something that we learned when we were coaching at the Division I level. So, while Mary Kate was at the University of Iowa, I was at the University of Louisville, and our careers kind of started to intertwine after that. How do we get athletic training, sports psychology, nutrition, academic services, and even the equipment room all on the same page? Because, at Springfield College, we're working with over 600 student athletes, and it truly is a student, coach student model. And so that's really important to us. It does create some logistical issues and considerations because at the Division I level, we had all day to meet. We had as much time as we wanted, whether we were coaching or going to practice, that was it. Here, we're balancing schedules between our students' schedules, our GA schedules. And so while it's not perfect, every day we try to figure out exactly, who needs to know what at what time and when, and make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. So it's constantly a process that we're trying to refine, but the athletic training program has a similar program with their GAs. And as we continue to expand, and now that I work in sports psychology, most of our teams have a placement of a practicing mental performance consultant. So we're really trying to bring that holistic spirit, mind, body experience for all of our student athletes, not just putting it on a brochure and telling everybody about it.
And go ahead.
I think something that's helped too is we've been incorporating a lot more sport technology on campus. So right now we have GPS monitors on our football team, our men's soccer team, our women's soccer team, our field hockey team, and then something that also does load monitoring called Vert on our women's volleyball team. And then in the spring, they'll all flip over to men's volleyball, men's and women's lacrosse, et cetera. And now that we're able to collect all this load data of like what's happening at practice, we can sit down and have conversations with our coaches about practice planning. We can sit down and have conversations with our athletic trainers about return to play protocols. We can talk to, we're collecting wellness questionnaires as well, and we can talk to our sports psychologists or athletic counselors about, motivation to train scores or stress scores. So we're able to collect all this data. And I feel like, and this is new, like this is the last couple of years, we've really been upping our data game, but it gives us stuff that we connect to each other a lot better than I'm in the weight room, or I'm in AT, or I'm athletic counseling or sports psych. Now we have this data that incorporates everybody. So I think that's really, it's a game changer for us. We're still figuring out all the protocols, but I think it's going to really make a big difference.
Wow, it's like you're a mind reader. Honestly, when Adam was finishing up, I was just about to ask about sports science. Honestly, I was just going, okay, so this is emerging in the last, say, I would just say 5 years maybe, that sports science, just the terminology and the position in some professional world sports would be the lead sports scientist and so on. But you're starting to incorporate it. Do you have a sports science department amongst the strength conditioning and athletic training and so? It's Mary Kate, huh? Yeah, you are the lead.
Okay. Oh, well, I'll brief a little bit. I'll have Mary Kate go into this, but right now it's our GAs and it's our professors. And so a lot of respect goes to Mary Kate for applying for a grant to actually get a lot more units and using those connections that we have made in the field with colleges as we were, rising our own careers and whatnot. So we've been in discussions with our department chairs, like our superiors. I mean, we're trying desperately to create a doctoral program in sports science. What we do learn at the academic level is that unlike the private sector level, if you have the money, time, and resources, you can be like, yeah, let's do it. Things do take quite a bit longer here at this level. So in terms of a staff, no, but Mary Kate's been able to do some really cool things. I'll let her talk about in terms of how she's been able to create classes and actually positions within that internship experience to really bring the full gamut of services to our student athletes.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so we created a technology use and strength and conditioning class that our graduate students take. So it's our second year teaching it. And in there before I signed on, I was literally grading case studies, but we're using real data collected in case study format to create recommendations that we're actually going to give back to the coaches, right? So that we're able to actually dive into the data in the classroom setting. There are students who are GAs, they're diving into the data every single day. But that class has helped kind of with some data that's a little bit lost that we need more help with. We can use all our students to do it, right? We have a couple faculty members, especially Dr. Jen Fields, who does a lot of research with the data we collect, which is really helpful because she can do a deeper dive into it. And then we have quite a few papers that are out there, hopefully getting published in the near future. And that shows academia the value of helping fund all these pieces of technology, right? So I found what I'm learning to do is to figure out how many people can benefit from something and then asking all of them to help contribute to make it purchased, right? So how can academia use this? How can athletics use this? How can we use this? And making sure that we show value in as many different ways as possible to help with the funding. But yeah, we hope for this PhD program because that'll provide more students for us to, analyze the data. We're hoping to create more GA positions to help analyze the data because our GAs are pretty swamped right now that they have all this extra data. I have proposed another internship class so that they do one internship on campus where they're coaching and another internship on campus where they're working as the sports scientist and they're collecting and analyzing the data. So that is where our program is definitely heading. We're not going to lose our strength and conditioning roots at all. That's still going to be our bread and butter. But as strength and conditioning coaches, we need to know how to use all this information. So that's where we're going right now. If we had another department, that'd be great. We're not there yet.
But it's great that you're I won't know if you're leading the way because I'm not in the world of academia, but that to at least open the doors to know that it's more than just a weight room. Now we've got technology, wearable tech, and force plate technology, and velocity-based training, all of this stuff is starting to really percolate up to the surface. And there's so much data out there that it's really easy to get lost in data and statistics without actually kind of coming to an understanding of why is this going to benefit us or how. So with that, you've got all these data points. What are some of like the top elements that you can extract this information and say this is directly going to benefit these particular athletes, whether it's like you mentioned, Vert with the volleyball players, like how do you use that in terms of improving performance?
So for us, a lot of it has been practice planning. So helping coaches look back at their practices. We add splits to different data so that we can see what are the exact demands of each drill that the coaches do. So men's soccer, we actually have a practice planner now where he picks from a drop-down menu all the drills he wants to do for the day, and then picks what his duration will be, and then it calculates out what like the physiological load would be. And then he can look at that and match it. Is this a light day or low volume, low intensity day, low volume, high intensity day, high volume, low intensity day, and whatever the fourth one I didn't just mention was. And he can look to see if it matches the category that he wants the day to be. And if it does, he's good. If it doesn't, then he has to play around with either the duration of the drills or which drills he picks to, again, have, our heavy days really heavy and our light days really light, so that our athletes aren't entering game day excessively fatigued.
So really fine tuning, almost like an aperture or whatever that on a camera lens, where you can really focus in tight on exactly what you need, rather than at this point, to some degree, before sports science and all this data, it was educational guesses, really, is what you're saying.
Yep, absolutely.
Very
cool. I think to add to that real quick, Rocky, is it has done for some coaches actually validate, their coaching experience. I think a lot of us, especially as we age ourselves, right? Like,
are we aging?
Things like I'm an old school coach or back in my day, right? So I'm finding myself say quite a bit of that because I think, when I started to go through and when I met Mary Kate, I mean, Tendo was like the latest and greatest thing. And we can now look at bar speeds and tell our kids, and they're like, how did you know it'd be that fast? And I'm like, man, I've seen thousands of these reps. Like, that's the coach's eye. But we've also been very fortunate to work with some coaches who, yes, have tweaked their practice schedules and game planning, but also have reaffirmed them of, that typical weekly taper where Saturday, for instance, might be their heaviest load, and then they follow some sort of step down progression to get ready for the next game. So that has been really neat because, in terms of ego building or just trust in their own processes as a sport coach, it's been really nice to kind of collaborate both with our GAs and the sport coaches to understand that, hey, we both want what's best for our student athletes. If this can help or reaffirm what you already know, awesome. That just makes the investment that much more worth it.
And then is there a sport currently that utilizes all this information that you're analyzing, gathering the data and so on, that is really benefiting the most compared to all the other sports? Like football, has been dialed in for so many years. There's so much money and attention going to football, but maybe it's volleyball, or maybe it's women's basketball, or maybe it's the places that don't get the excessive funding like some of the bigger sports do. Is there any sport that's going, oh man, I'm so glad we have this right
now? So this is our first year working with women's soccer, field hockey, and women's volleyball with data. So I think after this year, that's where we're probably going to be with them. This year, the first year, you kind of have to collect, you point out some things, but you can't make too many recommendations until you know what the year looks like or what the season looks like, right? So we might be like, ooh, so-and-so's ran, way more yardage than so-and-so, like we should back them off. So little tweaks here and there, but I think those sports are going to start to really, when we sit down at the end of the season and look at the data and make recommendations for last year, I think that's when it's going to really hit that, like, wow, this is huge. Like, this is making a big difference.
And it's software programming in terms of program design. Is there a company that you go with or is it in-house that Springfield College and your department has developed itself?
For writing the strength and conditioning programs?
Yeah.
We're old school Excel group here.
Woo! Nice.
You're purists, like the finest. We'll dabble in some Google Sheets, but Mary Kay will take our GAs.
Now you're getting out there. It's funny when you say, well, back in my day, we had Tendo. And I'm thinking, well, back in my day, I had Nintendo.
Yeah. And in today's day, we have Nintendo Switch, so we'll meet you full circle all the way
Oh,
around.
dang, that's good. I got to say, the only time that I have been on campus for Springfield College, and this will date me, is that when Tim Daggett was putting on a gymnastics workshop and just after winning gold in the '86 Olympics. So I think it was, I want to say it was right around that time, 85 or '86. That's the only time I've been on there. But it is a beautiful campus. And you all have been in the world of academia for some time, but you're also in the private sector too. You've got a studio that you're training young athletes throughout the year. I know this is kind of getting into the down season right now with all the fall sports, and you're getting ready to ramp up for winter break and so on. But what's that like to balance out the private training and working on campus? How is that working out for you guys?
Well, I mean, we're very fortunate to have great grad students that can help us. And, when we first started, it was a studio. It was the middle of the pandemic, and Mary Kate saw me just kind of sulking around the house because coaching is very much a big life force of me and what brings me to life. And we just simply couldn't do it. So as things started to ease up, she's like, hey, put it out there. And, that's what I did. So I started very small, put just an ad out in our local Facebook group with our parents and just said, hey, we're so-and-so, we've done so-and-so things, we'd like to do so-and-so more things. If you'd like to help out or just, hang out with us in our garage, let us know. And what started off with 4 middle school basketball AAU players has turned into consistent employment for grad students and auxiliary income for our family. And now we've expanded into a 2,000 square foot facility behind an indoor soccer facility in town. So having some experience working with Bobby Smith and Sharon Wentworth, back in the day, 2012 to 2017 at Reach Your Potential training, really solidified our business decisions. And now we're a lot smarter with purchasing and staffing and whatnot. But I absolutely love it. There are some days I have no idea how we're going to get through. I'm going to be completely honest with scheduling, or if a coach goes down, like myself, for instance, I'm still in quarantine right now. We somehow find a way to make it work. But I think what I've really appreciated the most about it, and I can have Mary Kate talk more about this, is, working with the kids is fantastic, but it's really the relationships we're able to build in the community with the parents. Now we can go to the sidelines and actually know, oh, that's so-and-so's dad or that's so-and-so's mom. Being invited to places and just being part of something greater than ourselves. That's been the biggest thing that I've really enjoyed, because we're actually part of something outside the typical work environment. So I love it. I have no idea where it's going to go, but it definitely keeps us busy. As you said, the fall is our slowest time. Traditionally, that's how it's always been. And we're really gearing up for, off-season training. As they say, winter is coming. So can't wait to get the kids back in there.
Mary Kate, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's been fun. I'll echo what Adam said about the community, just feeling part of the community. I took the kids to this outdoor trick or treat thing at the high school on Friday, and almost every booth we went to, I had my TFP, which is our company, sweatshirt on, and almost every booth an athlete or a student was like, oh, you're from TFP, I trained there on Tuesdays, or I trained there last summer, or, I know someone that trained there. So it was kind of fun walking around, and they all knew who the kids were. And so I think it's fun being part of the community in that way and helping the community in any way that we can. I like to say I coach the coaches now. I try to retire from coaching. It doesn't work. I got pulled back in. I'm still coaching a couple hours a week. I always am. But Adam needs to coach all the time, right? I coach and I like it, but I don't feel the pressure to coach all the time. So I like that right now I'm working with a club soccer team twice a week, and I go over there and I do speed and agility, and it's, I have 60 athletes one day and 2 staff members with me. So it's crazy, and I love that I'm doing that. But I'm not as deep in the company as Adam is. I kind of jump in and help with injured athletes and whatnot here and there. So I like that we have it. I like that we're able to help the community. I like that it makes Adam really happy to coach. So I definitely see it as something we continue doing. I love that we have 4 or 5 students, Adam, right now who make extra money throughout the week working for us, and those are my students. So like I take a lot of pride in, they're paying to go to school. Well, at least we're helping them pay for groceries and rent. So it's a great way to supplement their education as well.
Yeah, and how do you work it around your schedule on campus? And you of course, the Feits are breeding, right? You've got a couple of kids you got to deal with too, right? I say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you've got some young athletes, some soccer athletes, and so on. How do you just balance that all out?
I will say the first couple weeks of the semester is always challenging because we practice what we preach. We're not just going to take students and just saying, all right, here's a program, like figure it out, right? So I spend usually the first month of every semester still coaching every group, starting groups as early as 3:30. Right now in the fall, it's slower, so it's at 4. So I'm at the facility 4 or 5 nights a week between the hours of 4 and 8, showing the coaches, this is how we coach, this is our methodology, these are the cues that we use, this is how we build relationships, opening and closing procedures. So during that time, I don't see the family quite a bit. The kids will come in, they'll train twice a week with us. So we try to balance that out with their soccer schedules. Our daughter Macy is 8 years old and is just religious about not missing TFP. So we balance that out. She practices soccer Monday, Wednesdays. She goes to TFP Tuesday, Thursdays. And we find a way. We've been smarter with our time. I tried, both of us try not to miss any games. So, the weekends are sacred for us. So that's what was really great about finding grad students of saying, hey, we're going to pay you what you're worth. We're not going to pay you minimum wage. If you have a certification, we're going to give you these opportunities, and we're going to give you a great rate on personal training too. So now that we're kind of midway through the semester, that's really opened up some opportunities for us to kind of breathe a little bit. But again, in another 5, 6, 7 weeks, we'll start it back up again. So it's definitely an investment, like anything worth doing, right? You put in a lot of work on the front end, but then you can move on. We have groups in the morning. We're training elite members of the institution early mornings. We don't have to be there. So it gives the students a great learn by doing experience, and they get paid. And we can benefit both, financially, as well as, that sense of doing good for the community, both for our clients and our students.
Now, I don't normally cut into conversations that I'm having with guests, but I wanted to make sure that you're well aware that I will actually be not far away from Mary Kate and Adam, just north of Springfield, actually in southern New Hampshire, Keene, New Hampshire, in fact, this November 5th and 6th, where I will be teaching a 2-day course all about closed chain biomechanics of the lower body as it relates to gait. So it's still available. If you want to, go to my website, rockysnyder.com, click on workshops and courses. You'll get more information about it, but we're going to delve into the mechanics of pronation and supination, how that relates to rehab as well as strength conditioning. So if you're a manual therapist, a movement therapist, a chiropractor, or a physical therapist, this is for you. Just go to rockysnyder.com and look at the lower body closed chain biomechanics course. I hope to see you in Keene, New Hampshire this November.
Right on. Mary Kate, your schedule on campus, how do you work that? Are there courses that you can choose the times in which you teach them, or here is what you're going to be doing, you've got to work around it?
Yeah, so we're mostly told, here's your classes, you need to make it work. We definitely get to have a little bit of an opinion, or I'd really like to teach this class, or it's really hard for me to, we have asked if whenever possible, if one of us could be home to get the kids on the bus and one of us to be home to get the kids off the bus. We don't care which one of it is, just as long as one of us could do both of those things each day. And they've been able to accommodate that so far, which has been amazing. And that's really important to me, is that we're around as much as we can for the kids, which is probably why I coach a little bit less, because I like running around to the soccer practice and the basketball practice and, driving them all over the place. So that's been really good. That's kind of one of the things I like the most about being a professor. Well, I love so many things about being a professor, but one thing that's really nice is, you have your class schedule, you get to pick your office hours whenever you want. And then as long as you get your work done, you don't have to be there till 5 every day. There's no reason. If I'm done teaching at 2, I can go home. I can go get the kids off the bus. I can run them around to all their activities. And then if I have grading to do, I can do that after the kids go to bed. So it can be exhausting, especially, with the kids and our full-time job and then the business, but we can piece it together however we want. So it's really worked well, especially I think Adam and I have gotten a little better at delegating than we used to be, delegating to people we trust. But that's been a huge key for us, is in having this business, is having the ability to delegate.
And as staff members in Springfield College, are you required to be always working on some type of research? Is it or is what we've just been talking about with sports science your main thing that you're focusing on? I mean, do you need to be writing dissertations or research projects to help fund the program, or do you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's certain universities and colleges that require that, and then there's others that just say, no, these professors are actually here to teach, and we're not asking them to do this and that.
Yeah, so we are definitely a teaching college. We all teach, about 12 credits. I teach 9 because I have a 3-credit release to work in the weight room. But we teach a lot more credits than other institutions that I know of. We're not as research driven, but research or professional work is still a huge part for us. My position's a program track position. So rather than research, I need to do professional work, which is speaking at conferences, which I love. I love speaking at conferences. I've been very lucky and fortunate the last 4 or 5 years that I've been speaking at a lot of conferences. So it's kind of an easier checkbox for me, and I feel a lot more impactful doing that. I'm pulled into research a lot with the sports science stuff as a 2nd or 3rd or 4th researcher on the papers, which is perfect for me. I like connecting people to the information. I like coming up with the questions. I like the practical application, but I don't need to write the whole thing. So I'm fortunate to have good research partners that take care of those pieces for me.
Yeah.
Adam's a little bit different though. He has to do a little bit more research than I do. Right, Adam?
Yeah, I should probably get going on that. Just the luck of the draw, unfortunately. But
well, isn't that what quarantine is for? I got to tell you, when I was in quarantine for like a week, it was vacation because I had to be all by myself, and not be able to say that right now because she's in the room. But I mean, you don't have the wife and kids, you're not at their beck and call. So this is opportunity right now, man.
Opportunity to catch up on Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, and any other thing that doesn't allow me to sleep to keep me up. But yeah, so in our institution, there are essentially 2 different types of positions. There's program track, which is more professional, which is really great for what we call our teacher coaches. So all of our coaches on campus, they teach one class, but 75% of their salary comes from coaching. And so Mary Kate lucked out in getting one of those positions, just kind of how it opened up. Myself, I'm in a tenure track position. So while the pressure isn't as much to publish, let's say at like a Penn State or a Duke or a Boston College, it is still up there. So what's been great about working in strength conditioning is now we develop what's called research lines, where I can take the data that Mary Kate and her staff are using. For instance, we were able to secure an in-body machine for body composition. So one of the papers I'm working on right now are, what are the seasonal changes within Division III athletes from season to season, from year to year. So at the Division III level, that hasn't really been done. There has been no normative standards. So we can use that data to help guide our GAs with their in-season programming or off-season programming. But it also allows me to, as Mary Kate said earlier, I want to do this thing. How many people could benefit from it? And both selfishly, that helps me keep my job, as well as what kind of data can we get for it to improve our other people's jobs? That's what it's about. So I've got a lot of things like 80% done. They're just not done yet. So that is my focus. Hopefully I'm not in quarantine any longer than I have to be. But this year, my 2nd year on campus, will be a big year of getting these things submitted, which includes my dissertation, which will be 2 studies in of itself.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So I don't even know where to begin with that. That's crazy. All right. No pressure though, right? No pressure.
Pressure is a privilege. That's what I keep telling my student athletes. So.
Ooh, wow. Pressure is a privilege. I like that. Okay. So let's just switch over to Perform Better, because you were, Mary Kate, just talking about how you really like to present, and that's part of your role in a way. And I've sat in on your presentations for Perform Better and enjoyed every one of them. You definitely, I can tell that you like to do it, but you also like to coach coaches. And it's a lot of what you present on is the coaching skills and so on. So I guess, yeah, how did you guys start connecting with Perform Better? How did that happen? It's been a few years that you were presenting, like 3 or 4 years now. How did that come about?
So I presented in person this past summer and then virtually the 2 summers before that. So that's kind of when I started with Perform Better. I guess the winter before I started presenting, I was presenting for Perform Better. I was presenting at an NSCA national conference, and I saw Chris at the booth and I went over to chat with him after, and he said, I just heard your presentation was awesome. I definitely want you to start presenting with us. So I think that was kind of cool because it wasn't using my network per se. It was more that he heard that my presentation went really well. And because of that, he wanted to pull me in. So I was kind of honored that that's how I kind of got entered into it. And then he's kept me. So let's hope that continues, because I think I do present a little differently than other people. I present the way I teach. So I will stop and have people discuss with each other and report back. I will, sometimes I'll have people complete a worksheet during my presentation. So it's a lot more, I don't want to say hands-on learning, because we're not exercising, right? We are discussing and reflecting on the way that we coach. It's again, a lot about coaching behaviors and how to be a reflective coach and all those pieces, which is different, so I hope it's something that sticks and that people enjoy.
Adam, what about you? What do you like presenting?
Yeah, I try to use my network as much as possible. So I had tried for years to break into the Perform Better circuit. And as you know, I mean, this is elite of the elite, top of the top. And you simply just can't do a bunch of presentations or a bunch of webinars and just, get a spot on that. So I'll let Mary Kate kind of tell the back end story. But, I was very fortunate. I worked with John Berardi for a number of years. I worked at PN for 5 years. And John is an early mentor of mine and was a Perform Better speaker. And I can't tell you the amount of times that he emailed Chris with me CC'd or BCC'd being like, hey, I'm going to start phasing out. I'm having a family. I can't recommend Adam enough. And we were ready to go. I mean, John coaches up. You got to have your bio shot ready. You got to have your topic. You got to have your bullet points. You got to have everything ready to go. And it was always like, yeah, absolutely. Like, we'll see what we can do. And just every time the itinerary came out, I was like, all right, not this year. Until that 1 year. But now it's been 3 years running. I'll let Mary Kate kind of tell the back end story. While initially John Berardi's words probably helped me get to the party, I think Mary Kate's personal relationships and her network really helped me get through the door.
So I knew Adam's an amazing presenter. Like, I think everybody has like a gift, right? And I think presenting's Adam's gift. And I knew he wanted to present at Perform Better. It kept not happening. I kind of knew Chris because I grew up training with Mike Boyle. So I had interacted with him in that way. And we were at a conference. It was probably an NSCA conference. And we were out at a bar and I saw Chris. And I may have accidentally bumped into him to accidentally start a conversation in which I promoted that Adam should present at his conference. And then I introduced Adam face-to-face to him. So Chris doesn't know this unless he listens or watches this, but it was a purposeful bump into him to introduce him to Adam, to try to get Adam in the door. And it worked. So all those emails from John Berardi did nothing, but me bumping into him in a bar was what it took. So
that's it. It's all about getting him in the right moment. That's great. And Adam, what did you present on this year?
This year, I think, was the best area that I'm really looking forward to explore more. But we talked about mindset and how obviously the last couple of years have been very tough for our own coaching mindset, but also of our clients. But once I went back to school, I stopped talking about nutrition macros and X's and O's of programming. And it's not that we don't need more work in that. I think that we still need to revisit this psychosocial lens, or really the psychological effects of training and the lack of training, and just how we approach situations in life. So I talked a lot about mindset and how to build what we call mental skills. We spend so much time in the health and fitness industry teaching people how to squat and to hinge and to carry and to press and to pull. But what are we addressing? The behavior modification strategies? Are we addressing the lack of confidence? Are we addressing the lack of motivation? And so my PhD work was heavily involved in mental skills training at the coaching levels. And so I'm really excited to kind of take this to the circuit for as many conferences and as many presentations as Chris and other event promoters will take it, because I think really it is a missing link. And when we go for professional development, it's not just about a tool that you can buy at the booth. It's not just about a workout program that you can download from an Excel. It's about talking with people, real people, coaching coaches, and reanalyzing a lot of what we assume to be true, but it's not.
What are, excuse me, what are other events that do you speak at?
Mary Kate said we've been, advocate promoters of the NSCA. They've been really great to us, helping us build our careers. Mary Kate serves on the women's committee. I serve now as the NSCA state director for Massachusetts. So really thankful to them for taking a shot on a young strength coach many years ago at a state clinic in Kentucky at 2009. And so we've been able to present a lot for them at their regional and national events. We've also presented for the CSCCA, so the Collegiate Strength Conditioning Coaches Association. We recently wrapped up a presentation with them virtually last year, and we're waiting to hopefully present with them this year. So I would say those are the two big main organizations. I've done a lot of work with NASM, the National Academy of Sports Medicine, and a lot of other local venues as well. So we try to get on the biggest stages as possible because quite frankly, we're parents now. So if this gives us an opportunity to either for us to get away from the kids for a weekend, or B, take our kids with us, we're just trying to play the game a little bit smarter, not harder as we move forward.
Right on. Now, something we touched upon last week in the unrecorded version is that you spent some time working with the Carolina Panthers. And a lot of the people that have been on the show are in the world of professional sports. You opted to change your path and go to the university. What was that all about?
Yeah, well, I think they could probably use a little Coach Adam in their franchise right now. They're not doing so hot. A lot of coaching changes. And I can say that because I don't really know anybody on staff anymore, because that was one of the biggest drawbacks of working at the professional level. So a quick background history, I was very fortunate to get promoted very quickly throughout the profession of coaching. I went from a grad student at 21 to being the youngest head strength coach at Division I at 24. And then at 25, I was the youngest strength coach in the NFL. And so you're still going through the things. You're still figuring out your coaching philosophies. You're still figuring out who you are as a coach and what it means to you, and to really try to settle down some roots. And when I got there, it was an atypical year. It was the lockout year. So I took the job in February, and I didn't really coach anybody until July. But once July hit, it was all gas and no brakes. And it was a shell shock for me, because I went from really one of the worst programs in Division I, which by far is the greatest job any young coach can have, because the expectations for you to succeed are very low. And there's only one way to go up, which is up, to everything we do matters. Every word we select, every action we choose, every exercise that we program for our quarterbacks. Like, I was Cam Newton's strength coach his rookie season. And so the amount of pressure on that, but how everything was so transactional. And that was hard for me to accept and actually work with, because I had spent so much of my early career on the foundations of building relationships, of slow cooking the process, of working with kids, not as what can you do for me on a Friday night or Saturday afternoon, but about how I can serve you. And that's not what the NFL was at that time. And things have changed, and I have grown older and much wiser. And as you can see from my attempt at a beard and a haircut that I desperately need, that wisdom comes through experience. And so I had left college, I had left that, building type of phase into the true high performance phase. And I can't tell you how many games that we watched, Mary Kate, in the stands, or myself on the sidelines, wondering, like, are we going to get fired tomorrow? Like, is this it? What type of experiences are we going to have? Is this, do we unpack the boxes? We just got married. We just bought a house. We just got pregnant. Like, all of these things were going through my head. So at that time, it's very transactional. And I think I got there, quite honestly, I think I got there a little too early in my career. I think reflecting back on it, understanding how the game is played. And, we joked earlier about the Game of Thrones and catching up during quarantine. It very much is a different atmosphere than what we see on TV. And I won't share any specifics in terms of the conversations I had with doctors and athletic trainers and coaches and general managers. But I often joke, right, that the National Football League, the NFL, stands for not for long. I would see guys that I would build relationships with miss a tackle on Sunday, and their locker would be cleaned out on Monday. I would see guys that would come in for a workout on Tuesday morning as a tryout, not make it, and then not see them again on Wednesday. And so when you pride yourself on building relationships, when you pride yourself on really being in it for the long run, and just seeing it as a constant carousel of new talent, better talent, who's going to help us win on Sunday. Admittedly, I didn't handle that well. And so I made a decision with Mary Kate, again, just freshly married, just found out we were pregnant, of, is this a lifestyle that we want for our future family? And it was a decision that we agreed on. No. So about halfway through the season, I said, I'm having some second thoughts about my future here, and I'd love to get back to college. But we knew by the end of the season that year, and I actually turned in my notice, I think the day of our last game, we went to go play New Orleans Saints. And I said, this isn't where I want to continue my career. And, I'm very much appreciative of everything that we've done here and that what you're going to do here, but I need to get out. And that's going to be my goal. So we wanted to go back into the university college level, but, we were very lucky at university level. I worked in football strength conditioning. Mary Kate worked in Olympic sports strength conditioning, two very different staffs, but also at the same school that we knew that was going to be very limited. So while we had an opportunity that would have given us something similar, let's face it, Rocky, I would have either gotten promoted or fired because of working with high level football. And we decided to take a different path. So while we eventually came back to university level, we dipped our toes in the private sector setting and tried to build something from nothing with another couple. And it turned out great. It was an awesome 5-year run, but we knew we needed to make a change after that too. So what an experience it was. I will say that.
I bet. And then I don't think we've ever even spoken about it, but how did you both land back? How did you decide to go back to Springfield?
Ooh, I'll leave this one to Mary Kate. Yeah.
All right.
So we were at Reach Your Potential training, and RIPT was awesome. We went from 7 athletes to, I don't know, thousands of athletes, Adam. By the end, Adam and Bobby were putting out products like CDs, or excuse me, DVDs back then. Things were going great. We had the private sector great flexibility of, I ran our adult program in the morning, so I worked like 5 a.m. till noon, and then Adam worked from noon until 7 or 8 or 9 at night, so that one of us was with the kids at all times. So really everything was great, but I don't know, it didn't feel like the end goal for me. I don't know, my adults, they'd really just mostly wanted to sweat and talk, which was fine, but I found myself not continuing to learn and grow anymore. I was settling, and that's on me. It's not on adult strength and conditioning, right? As an adult strength and conditioning coach, I could have continued to learn and grow and get my clients better, but my passion wasn't in it. So we did a lot of reflection. It took at least a year for me to figure out what was next. I looked at, I was like, maybe massage therapy. No, I hate, like my hands get tired. I don't like that. Maybe it's PE. And I was like, I don't know. So it was like going back and forth about what was next. And again, it was me. It wasn't Adam. Adam was very happy there. And then Adam was in China speaking at a conference with Dr. Brian Thompson, who is the head of the graduate program here and the head of strength and conditioning at Springfield College. And Dr. T came up with the idea of us coming back to do our doctorates. I think, Adam, I don't know if you texted me or called me from China, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, we're going to both leave like successful careers and go back. I'm going to be a GA again. Luckily, Adam was working for PN, so he could work remotely anywhere. But we thought about it and we took the leap. I reflected a lot about what I loved about college strength and conditioning. And it wasn't actually the college strength and conditioning, it was the growth and development of people at that age, right? It was my interns, it was my GAs, it was my athletes who became coaches. And that's when I realized coaching coaches was what my passion was about, and drove us back to Springfield College to get our PhDs, which was crazy with both of us doing our PhDs. He was working full time. I was a GA. We had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. But it was the best decision we ever made. I could not be happier than I am right now. And, luckily Springfield College was able to create a position for me. But my last year doing my doctorate, I was hired on as a full-time faculty member. So I had 1 year that I was doing both, which was hard, but well worth it. And then when a position opened up for Adam, he was hired as well. So we are so happy to be back and settled here at Springfield.
Wow, that's great. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, Mary Kate, about your kind of origin story, because this past week I had Mike Boyle on, or actually it was kind of just, I pulled it out of the archives because Mike was my first guest on this Zealous podcast. And so I kind of replayed our conversation, but that's where you started. That's where you were one of his clients. And then and your decision to do what you're doing was pretty much made there, wasn't it?
Yeah. So when I grew really early. I'm only 5 feet tall, ish. And I hit that when I was like 9 or 10. Right. So I was a dominant soccer player. I was bigger. I was stronger. I just hit maturity or puberty way before everybody else. And then everyone started catching up around when I was 13, and the head of my soccer program recommended I go train at this gym, right? And kudos to my mom. It was 45 minutes away. She took my brother and I to go look at it. And it was just this big warehouse with like weights in it, right? Dumbbells, benches, whatever. And we knew nothing, right? Like youth strength and conditioning this was like mid to late 90s. Like it wasn't something that was out there at the time. And, we talked to this guy who convinced us to sign up. He gave us a 2-for-1 deal. So he wasn't a good businessman. And my brother and I joined. It was group training, but the gym was so not crowded at the time that often we showed up and we got trained just by this individual who happened to be Mike Boyle. And it was right when he started his business. It wasn't called Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning yet. It was called something else. And I started training there. After my first session, I wasn't with Mike. I was with one of the interns who is a very successful strength coach now. I won't name drop him. But I hated it. It was hard and everything hurt and I wasn't good at it and I hated it. Right. So I got in the car and I cried and I said, I'm never going back again. I don't want to go. My mom let me skip one, but by the next week, she's like, that's it. You're going back. And I went back in. I was trained by another individual, also a successful strength coach. And I got in the car after and I said, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a strength and conditioning coach. So I was 13 when I decided this is what I wanted to do. So before I had a license, somewhere around 15, 16, Boyles had boomed. MBSC was huge. We had, 300 plus athletes coming for the summer and they needed a staff. And Mike took a leap and I don't know what he was thinking, but he hired me on staff. So my mom would drop me off in the morning. My brother would pick me up on his way home from work because I wasn't old enough to drive. And I started coaching and I was, I would get there and I would finish up the Bruins with Mike. I finished the day warming up the Harvard football team. I was around professional athletes all the time. So I always say I'm the luckiest person in strength and conditioning. I literally grew up coaching and I worked there from when I was 16 until I was 22 every summer. So I owe a lot to Mike and the community he built there and the people around him. And I mean, they really kind of made me into who I am now as a professional and as a person.
Right on. Yeah, we actually talked about his hiring practice and philosophy as to why he chooses who he does. So yeah, you might want to listen to that and just, but you probably already know that. Guys, this has been amazing. And the time has flown by once again. And I see that it does say recording, so I know we're locked on for this one. This has been great. I really appreciate your time. And I look forward to when our paths cross this coming year at one of the Perform Better Summits, which for those listening audience, you got to check out performbetter.com, Orlando, Chicago, Providence, Rhode Island, and coming back next year, most likely Long Beach, California. So 4 places around the country that have the creme de la creme. And I've just spent the last hour talking to 2 of those. So you guys, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Rocky. It's been awesome to catch up again.
And that's another episode for the Zealous Podcast. I can't thank the Feits enough for coming on a second time and sharing even more than they did the first time. And just check them out at Springfield College or at their private training facility. You can find all the links in the description of this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Have yourself a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.